Have you ever felt it? That quiet, invisible storm. It doesn't roar like thunder or crash like waves. It stirs within you, silent, relentless. A heaviness in the chest, a sudden tightness in the throat, the racing of thoughts chasing each other in circles, each whispering, what now, what next, what if? And the truth is, it doesn't take a war, a pandemic, or a tragedy to summon this storm. Sometimes it's as simple as a phone call you didn't expect, an empty chair at the dinner table, a job you thought was secure, now gone, or the unsettling silence after a familiar relationship dissolves. The world outside changes, and without warning, the world within follows. We humans are creatures of habit. We build routines like fragile shelters against the unpredictable winds of life. Wake up, work, love, hope, sleep, repeat. And for a while it feels safe, as if permanence were possible. But change is patient. It waits. And when it arrives, it does so without asking. We find ourselves gripping onto the past, onto certainty, as if by holding tighter we could stop the inevitable. But it slips through our fingers, like grains of sand refusing to be owned. Buddhism speaks of this as anicca, impermanence. Not a curse, not a flaw in the design, but the very nature of existence. Everything born must end. Every rising tide must fall. Every joy, every sorrow, every breath transient. And yet knowing this doesn't make it easier, at least not at first. The invisible storm takes many forms. For some, it's anger. For others, paralyzing fear. Or an unbearable ache for what once was. We run from it, distract ourselves in 1,000 clever ways. Work harder, scroll endlessly, shop, drink, chase new pleasures, hoping to fill the space left behind. But the storm follows, because no matter where you go, there you are. You see, suffering isn't born from change itself. It's born from resistance to change. The desperate clinging to what must, by its very nature, move on. The Buddha understood this well. He saw how people tethered their happiness to things doomed to decay, wealth, youth, relationships, even their own identity. And when those things inevitably slipped away, they called it tragedy. But it was only the world being exactly as it is. This teaching isn't meant to depress or disconnect us. It's a gentle invitation, a doorway. Because while we cannot stop the storm from coming, we can learn to stop fighting the wind. We can learn to sit within it unshaken, to feel the rain on our skin without drowning in it, to watch the clouds move without believing the sky is broken. That's where peace lives, not in controlling life, but in our relationship to it. It's easy to talk about calm when the waters are still. Anyone can feel serene when life aligns with expectation. The real test comes in the turbulence, when certainty crumbles, when the ground moves beneath your feet. And here's the quiet secret most people miss. It's in these very moments of unraveling that the door to wisdom creaks open. When everything you clung to falls away, you're left facing the one thing you've carried all along, yourself. And perhaps for the first time you'll ask, who am I when everything changes? What is left when everything I built disappears? The answer isn't found in books or borrowed beliefs. It reveals itself in silence, in stillness, in the simple, brave act of sitting with discomfort rather than running from it. This isn't a call to become indifferent or cold. It's an invitation to meet life as it is, not as you wish it to be. To watch the storm and realize it was never the enemy, it was the teacher. And so, we begin here, not by trying to escape change, but by seeing it, by understanding why it rattles us so deeply, and by gently, patiently learning to meet it with a steadier heart. There's a story told of a young monk who asked his master, "Master, how can I find peace in a world so restless?" And the old monk replied, "Stop trying to calm the world, calm yourself. Then the world in time will follow. Perhaps that's where we'll find it, not in the absence of storms, but in the space within us that remains untouched by them." And so, as we step deeper into this path, not chasing escape, but understanding, something quietly shifts. Because once you've seen the nature of impermanence, the ground beneath you may still shake, but you no longer fear the fall. And it's there, in that subtle but profound shift, where the journey truly begins. If you listen closely, you'll notice the world is always whispering one simple truth: nothing stays. The cherry blossom blooms only to fall. The waves rise, then slip back into the sea. A child's laughter, the warmth of a hand in yours, a long-awaited sunset, all beautiful, all fleeting. Yet we live as if this isn't so. We plan, build, cling, and ache for permanence in a world made of constant change. And when things slip through our grasp, as they always do, we call it heartbreak. But is it really tragedy, or is it the nature of life unfolding exactly as it must? In Buddhist thought, this is anicca, impermanence. It is not merely a philosophical idea, but the very fabric of existence. Every breath you take rises and falls. Every thought you've ever had appeared, lingered, then vanished. Look back on your own life. The faces, places, and feelings you believed would last forever, where are they now? Some remain in photographs, others only in memory. Some you carry like secret scars, and others you've forgotten entirely. This isn't meant to sadden you. It's meant to wake you. Because when you realize everything is temporary, something remarkable happens. You start paying attention. You stop sleepwalking through life, numbed by routine, assuming you'll always have later. The truth is, there's no later. There's only now. The Buddha taught that clinging to what's meant to pass is the root of suffering, not the change itself, but our resistance to it. We beg time to pause, hearts to stay faithful, bodies to remain young, joy to last endlessly. And when life moves as it must, we suffer. But what if we let go? Not of love, not of ambition, not of passion, but of the desperate need for them to last forever. What if we cherished a moment, not because it's permanent, but because it is? There's an old story of a sage who kept a delicate porcelain cup beside his bed. Each morning he'd lift it, admire its beauty, and whisper to himself, "This cup is already broken." Not out of sadness, but gratitude, because knowing its fate made every sip, every glance infinitely precious. Imagine if we lived like that. How differently you'd hold your child's hand, knowing one day they'll walk alone. How softly you'd speak to your parents, your partner, your friends, remembering nothing spoken is guaranteed a second chance. Impermanence doesn't ask us to withdraw from life. It invites us to love more fiercely, to savor the sweetness of a ripe peach, the sharp scent of rain on dry earth, the sound of your own laughter in a quiet room. When you truly understand impermanence, you stop postponing your joy. You don't wait for perfect circumstances, for certainty, for someday. You realize every moment is a limited edition, one of a kind, unrepeatable. And in that awareness, a different kind of peace takes root. Not the brittle, fragile peace built on keeping things from changing, but the resilient peace born from accepting that they will. It may sound like surrender, and in a way it is, but not the defeat kind of surrender, the wise, liberating kind. The kind that lets you set down the unbearable weight of trying to control what was never yours to hold. Even your own self, the one you think is constant, is not. You are not the same person you were 5 years ago, 5 days ago, or even 5 minutes ago. Your thoughts shift. Your moods rise and fall. Your body renews itself with every breath. Clinging to a fixed identity is like trying to carve a statue out of flowing water. Once you see this clearly, judgment softens. You forgive your past mistakes, knowing the version of you who made them no longer exists. You stop defining others by their worst moments because they too are changing endlessly. Impermanence becomes a kind of mercy. And perhaps this is the real heart of peace in a changing world. Not that storms won't come, but that you'll recognize their passing. Not that grief won't visit, but that you'll know it too shall loosen its grip. Not that joy will last forever, but that you'll cherish it all the more. The waves will rise. The leaves will fall. People will enter your life, and sometimes they will leave. And still, beneath it all, something within you can remain steady. A quiet awareness, a calm witness, a presence untouched by what comes and goes. And that is where we turn next. Have you ever stood at the edge of a stormy sea? Waves crashing, winds howling, the horizon trembling as if the world itself was breaking apart. In that moment, there's nothing you can do to stop the storm, but you can choose how you stand within it. This is the art of equanimity, a steady heart in an unsteady world, a mind that remains clear even when the waters rise, a soul that knows how to breathe even when the air grows thin. We confuse peace with silence. We think serenity is found in perfect conditions, no problems, no noise, no demands. But life isn't like that. The world hums, aches, and roars. And peace, if it is to be found, must be something you can carry within you, no matter what surrounds you. Buddhism speaks of upekkha, the fourth of the four immeasurables, often translated as equanimity, but it's more than mere calm. It's the ability to stay open, present, and steady through both joy and sorrow. It doesn't numb you. It doesn't harden you. It softens your resistance to the ever-changing tides of life. Think of a tree. When the wind comes, the branches sway. The leaves may scatter, some even torn away, but the trunk remains grounded in the earth, unwavering. Equanimity is that trunk, your capacity to feel without drowning, to care without collapsing, to act without being possessed by the outcome. In modern life, we're taught to react to every headline, every comment, every twist of fortune, and so we exhaust ourselves chasing what we like and fleeing what we fear. But the one who cultivates equanimity learns to watch the rise and fall without clinging or pushing away. It isn't about indifference, it's about wisdom. When joy comes, you welcome it like a dear guest. When sorrow arrives, you open the door without bitterness, because you know both will leave and neither defines you. The practice begins, like most things, in small moments. When someone interrupts you, can you feel the irritation rise and let it pass like a cloud? When disappointment visits, can you notice its sting without becoming its prisoner? There's a famous parable the Buddha told about a man shot with an arrow. He spoke of a person struck by a painful blow, and then, in confusion, struck again by their own reaction to it. The first arrow is life itself, inevitable pain, loss, setbacks. The second is our mental anguish, the stories we tell, the resistance we mount, the tight grip of this shouldn't be happening. Equanimity is the wisdom to stop after the first arrow. When you stop grasping for constant pleasure and stop fleeing inevitable discomfort, you create a profound kind of freedom. You realize you no longer have to ride every wave. You can watch them come and go, knowing the ocean remains. People may misunderstand. They'll ask why you're so calm when others panic, why you're still kind when others are cruel, why you don't drown in joy nor collapse in grief. It's because you've begun to see what lasts and what doesn't, and you've chosen to root yourself in what cannot be taken. Does this mean you won't feel? Of course not. It means you'll feel everything more honestly, more deeply, because you're no longer afraid to. And yet through it all, you'll remain upright. You'll hear the loud voices of fear, greed, and anger swirling around you, and you'll know you don't have to join their chorus. You'll feel joy arise and gently bow to it without clutching. You'll watch sorrow descend and greet it with a quiet, "Ah, you too." And in this way, you become unshakable, not because storms won't come, but because you've learned to stand steady in the storm. This is equanimity, not escape, not denial, but a fierce, steady heart that meets each moment as it is and chooses peace anyway. And it's here in this steady stillness, amid all the rising and falling, that a deeper refuge begins to open. There's a kind of wisdom that doesn't come from books, not from long sermons or complicated theories. It rises from silence, from the simple, brave act of sitting still. In the Zen tradition, this is known as Zazen, and at the heart of it lies a practice so unassuming, so ordinary that it baffles the restless mind. They call it Shikantaza. It means just sit. Not sit and solve your problems. Not sit and visualize success. Not even sit and quiet your thoughts. Simply sit. At first glance, it feels pointless. What could possibly happen in the act of doing nothing? In a world addicted to busyness and outcomes, we measure the worth of our time by the results it brings. But here's the secret. In doing nothing, you encounter everything. You meet yourself, not the version dressed for others' approval, not the one chasing tomorrow's plans, but the raw, wordless presence of this very moment. In Shikantaza, you don't chase thoughts away. You don't cling to them either. You sit like a mountain. Clouds drift through your mind, some dark, some bright, and you let them pass. There's no object to focus on, no mantra to repeat, no visualization to hold. You allow everything to be as it is, and in doing so, a strange kind of freedom appears. You see, most of our suffering doesn't come from what happens to us. It comes from our refusal to let things be. We chase after what feels good. We push away what feels bad. And in this endless chase, we exhaust ourselves. But when you just sit without grasping, without resisting, you step out of this cycle. You watch thoughts rise and fall like waves on an ocean. Emotions swell, crest, and dissolve. And somewhere in that watching, you discover you are not the waves. You are the ocean. Some days it will feel easy. Other days your mind will kick and scream, throwing up old memories, anxieties, to-do lists, regrets. Good, let them come. This too is the practice. You don't need to win against your mind. You need only sit with it. Like an old friend you no longer need to impress. Over time, something shifts. You start to see how thoughts are just thoughts, how feelings are weather systems passing through, and how beneath all of it there's a vast, quiet space. A space that was never touched by your failures or victories. A space that belongs to no one and yet holds everything. This is your true home. And here's the beautiful paradox: by doing nothing, you meet the fullness of life. Without chasing insights, insights arrive. Without hunting for peace, peace begins to seep through the cracks. You realize you don't need to control the mind to be free. You need to stop making war with it. Zen masters say, when you walk, just walk. When you eat, just eat. When you sit, just sit. Sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest things in the world, to be fully here in this breath, in this body, without needing it to be anything other than what it is. But once you taste it, even for a moment, it changes everything. You start to carry that presence into your day, into conversations, into grief, into joy. And slowly, the line between sitting and living begins to blur. That's the real power of Zazen and Shikantaza. It's not about becoming a better meditator. It's about remembering what you already are. A sky, vast and untroubled, within which all storms, all suns, all seasons come and go. So tomorrow, before the noise begins, just sit. Not to fix yourself, not to reach enlightenment, but because in this simple act, you return to your deepest self. And that self is already whole. And in this stillness, you begin to sense the sacred silence that moves beneath the noise of life. And that silence is not empty. It's the very heart of it all. Somewhere along the way, we were taught to believe we're separate, that there's a you and a me, a line between this self and that other. And yet, if you sit long enough in silence, really sit, you begin to feel something else moving underneath. A thread, an invisible pulse, a kind of quiet, undeniable truth. We belong to each other. In Buddhism, this is known as interbeing, a word coined by Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. It means nothing exists by itself. Everything leans on everything else. Look around. The tea you drink comes from the clouds. The paper you write on was once a tree. The breath you just took was made possible by 1,000 trees you've never met. And the same is true of us. Our joys, our sorrows, our fears, they don't arise in isolation. They are shaped by countless lives, past and present, by gestures of kindness we never saw, by wounds we inherited before we knew their names. And here, where compassion becomes not just a virtue, but a survival skill. Because when you realize your pain isn't just your pain, it softens. And when you see your joy mirrored in the eyes of another, it deepens. We are wired for connection. It's ancient, it's sacred. And in times of uncertainty, when the world feels jagged and cold, this truth can steady you like a lighthouse on a stormy night. Compassion isn't pity. It isn't about fixing someone so you can feel better about yourself. It's the willingness to sit beside them in the dark, to say, I see you, I'm here, and you don't have to carry this alone. And when you do this for others and for yourself, something incredible happens. You tap into a kind of strength that isn't loud or showy. It's the strength of knowing we rise and fall together, that none of us escapes sorrow and none of us is beyond hope. In Zen monasteries, monks eat together from the same bowls in the same posture at the same time, not as a rule but as a reminder. That hunger, like happiness, is a shared experience. When one laughs, the air changes for all. When one suffers in silence, the whole room tightens. This is the unseen fabric of life. We touch each other in ways we'll never fully understand. A kind word, a quiet presence, a shared silence, these small things ripple outward in ways no one can measure. And yet we forget. We scroll past faces. We armor our hearts. We convince ourselves no one could possibly understand what we're carrying. But if you look closely, you'll see everyone you meet is carrying something. A silent grief, an old scar, a hope they're afraid to name. And this is where compassion must begin, not as a performance but as a recognition of the fragile, unstoppable, beautiful ache of being human. Thich Nhat Hanh often said, "When you touch one thing with deep awareness, you touch everything." When you listen to someone's story, not with the intent to respond, but simply to listen, you're touching the entire universe within them. And in doing so, you soften the walls between you and them, between this life and all life. This, too, is part of finding peace in changing times, not through retreat, but through deeper presence, not by hardening yourself against the world, but by opening to it. Because here's the paradox. The more deeply you recognize your connection to others, the less the chaos of the world can shake you. Not because the world changes, but because you stop believing you're alone in it. And so tomorrow, when you pass a stranger, when a friend speaks their grief, when you catch your own reflection in the mirror, remember this: we interare. You are made of clouds and trees and grandmothers and old songs and starlight. And so is everyone else. And in that, there is a kind of quiet, unstoppable strength. There's a quiet honesty in Buddhist teachings. They don't promise to make your problems vanish. They don't paint over life's sharp edges with easy platitudes. Instead, they hold up a mirror. And in that reflection, you find something both unsettling and profoundly liberating. At the heart of this mirror are three simple truths, known as the three marks of existence: anicca, dukkha, anatta. We rarely notice them, but they shape every moment of our lives. And when you see them clearly, not as concepts, but as living experiences, the world stops being a battlefield and begins to reveal its deeper grace. Let's begin with anicca, impermanence. Everything you love will one day fade, the seasons shift, friendships drift. The breath you just took is already gone, and for most of us this truth feels cruel, because we cling to people, to identities, to moments we wish would last forever. But impermanence isn't a punishment. It's what makes beauty possible. A sunset wouldn't stun you if it stayed forever. The laughter of a child is precious because it's fleeting. When you stop fighting change, you stop suffering twice, first from the loss and again from your refusal to accept it. And then comes dukkha, often translated as suffering, but it's more than pain. It's the subtle unease that follows us even in good times, a sense that something is slightly off, a yearning that no accomplishment, no possession, no relationship can fully satisfy. We chase after things, believing this next thing will quiet the ache, but it never quite does. And it's not because life is cruel, it's because we've misunderstood its nature. The Buddha wasn't being pessimistic when he spoke of dukkha. He was being honest. And honesty, when met with courage, is a doorway. Finally, there's anatta, no self. This is the one we resist most. We believe in a solid, unchanging me, an identity made of memories, roles, likes, and dislikes. But when you sit in silence, watching the mind, you notice thoughts rise and fall. Moods shift. Desires come and go. Who then is this I we cling to so fiercely? The Buddha taught that what we call a self is a collection of conditions: body, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, consciousness, woven together like a flame that changes moment by moment. And here's the strange, beautiful paradox. When you loosen your grip on this rigid self, you become freer, not less yourself. You become vast, fluid, able to move with life instead of against it. These 3 marks aren't meant to depress you. They're meant to wake you up, to help you see that chasing permanence in an impermanent world is the root of exhaustion. That clinging to a fixed identity in a world of endless change is a recipe for heartbreak. And once you see this, truly see it, you begin to soften. When joy comes, you welcome it like a visitor. When sorrow arrives, you greet it too. You stop asking life to be other than it is, and in doing so, you discover a deeper kind of peace. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care more wisely. You savor what's here while it's here. You hold people with tenderness, knowing one day you'll have to let go. You laugh fully, you grieve honestly, and you stand a little closer to the pulse of things. And in that space, you stop fighting reality. You begin to live it, not as a story you're trying to control, but as a river you're finally learning to float within. And so, in a world of noise and distraction, of uncertainty and constant change, these 3 marks become a compass, a way to remember what's real, what matters, and what was never yours to cling to in the first place. Now, let's take one final breath together, and as we exhale, let go of whatever you were carrying into this moment. Because ahead lies one last doorway, a gentle reminder of what peace can look like when we stop chasing, stop resisting, and simply allow ourselves to be. And now here we are, at the edge of this quiet path we've been walking together. It wasn't a path filled with answers, not a roadmap to some perfect, untouchable life, but rather a set of old, patient truths, whispers passed down through generations of those who also struggled, who also lost, who also searched for peace in a world that refuses to stand still. If this journey has taught us anything, it's that uncertainty isn't a flaw in life's design. It is the design. Everything rises, everything falls, we lose, we begin again, and in between there is breath, there is stillness. There is a chance to meet each moment not with clenched fists but with open hands. A peaceful mind isn't one free from storms. It's the mind that sits quietly in the eye of them, aware of the winds but no longer thrown by them. It's the steady ground beneath your feet, even as the world quakes. The gentle light you carry within, when the road ahead disappears into mist. And the beautiful truth is, you already have this within you. You always did. The practices we've touched, equanimity, compassion, seeing impermanence, sitting in silence, these aren't things to achieve. They're reminders, each one a gentle nudge, leading you back to the part of yourself that was never broken, never lost, never separate. And so, as you step back into the wild and beautiful mess of daily life, may you carry these moments like small, sacred stones in your pocket. Reach for them when the world gets loud, when fear returns, when loss knocks at your door. And remember, you don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to fix everything. You only need to be here, fully, honestly, with kindness toward yourself and others. This too is the practice. Before we part ways, if this journey spoke to you, if it eased your heart, stirred your thoughts, or helped you feel just a little less alone in the noise, I'd be deeply honored if you'd stay connected. Subscribe to this channel so we can continue walking these ancient, gentle paths together. And if you feel called, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear what resonated with you most. Because the truth is, in this vast, fast-moving world, these quiet conversations matter. You matter. And together, we can keep these timeless teachings alive, not as relics, but as living, breathing guides for uncertain times. Thank you for being here, for listening, for simply being. Until next time, breathe deeply and carry peace with you wherever you go.